and welcome to Galley Stories, stories of the Bering Sea and beyond, hosted by Mark Kaler. My name is Penka Jane, podcast deckhand and longtime listener. We'd thank you to subscribe to the podcast and leave us a review. Here's today's catch.
Hello guys, and welcome back to another installment of Galley Stories, stories of the Bering Sea and beyond. I am your host, Mark Kaler. And today we're going to try something we haven't tried before. We've got a husband and wife duo. First, let me introduce Susan Crain. How are you, Susan?
Good, Mark. How are you?
Good. Susan started, we'll get to her fishing story here in a minute. And then also her husband, Captain Jeff Crain.
Hey there.
And you might recall Jeff was actually episode 2. So he was our second episode ever loaded. A lot of emails and comments about why is it so short? Let's get some more. Well, we brought him and his wife in today. So welcome, guys.
Thanks. You. Appreciate that.
And Susan, I want to start out with you. Jeff, during Jeff's interview, he had told us you guys met while in the commercial fishing industry. So let's start with, first of all, where were you born and how were you raised and what brought you into the fishery?
I was raised in Seattle. I was actually born just right around the corner at Ballard Hospital. So I've lived here all my life, and what got me into fishing was I was studying for a hotel and restaurant management degree, and the chef that I was studying under, I was the only person in class going to school full-time and working full-time. So he said, why don't you, for the summer, go up and take this job, and then maybe you can not work for a couple quarters. And I was like, So another guy that I happened to be in school with, we both signed up and found ourselves on the Arctic trawler. So I celebrated my 21st birthday. The next morning I left for Alaska. So I worked until the very final minute and left, and we did, it was probably about 4 months, 3.5 months or so on the Arctic trawler through the summer.
Till the boat was full. That's how that was back then.
Yeah.
You went out, you left the dock, and when the boat was full, it came back.
Where were they catching?
Here.
Oh, from here?
It was all cod.
All cod.
All cod. Well, it started as cod,
Yeah.
and I remember we kept catching pollock. Crazy now because, that was a big boat, 296 feet. And we would hit that pollock, and standing in the galley, you could feel the boat just stop. That's how much pollock was in the net when we'd hit it. And I remember they would just, back then, just let it out.
It was just trash fish then.
Yeah, it was trash fish, yeah.
Well, I guess it wasn't, but whatever. They had no use for it on the boat.
Yeah.
So it was.
But they did eventually switch over some of the machines so that they could process it. But, so I went up, did a trip for the summer, and obviously met Jeff.
On that first trip?
On that first trip, he was on there, yeah.
So, first trip out of the state and up to Alaska?
Yep.
Okay. How was that experience? Were you nervous at all? Because I know that when Jeff was on, his scariest moment was being stuck on a beach with his, let me see, how was it worded? With my parachute pants and
his mullet.
And my mullet. Was yours?
Mine was not near that bad. We backloaded.
What year was that? That was
84. Oh gosh.
So it was
aging
myself.
myself.
It was right in there, man.
Yeah.
It was right in there.
Yeah.
Def Leppard.
Yep. No, it really wasn't that scary. We loaded here.
Sea Freeze right over here.
No, we offloaded at Sea Freeze, but we loaded at the old yard, I think. Yeah, somewhere around here. It was, I wasn't really a big going away from home type of.
Because you got on the boat here in Seattle.
Got on the boat
And the next
here.
time you got off of it, you were here in Seattle.
Yeah, but
it was totally different back then. That's how it was. The boat left here.
Yeah, we left here
and then and filled up and came back here.
Now
nothing happens.
Inside Passage, obviously going up.
Yeah, I don't know. Probably not. No, I was seasick by the time we hit the Ballard. But passing Golden Gardens, I felt sick.
Really?
Yeah, it was awful. I didn't eat bacon for probably 8 years because actually I'm a little facetious about that.
How could you get by?
We would get through and then go to sleep. And the first thing, I was a second cook, so we loaded all the trays with bacon for breakfast. My job was to start breakfast. And as soon as I'd go pop that oven and smell that bacon, all over. But gratefully, I only was really sick for 12 hours and then never bothered me the rest of the time. But it's just you know.
Bacon never.
Yeah, the bacon. I didn't eat bacon for it. Just the smell of it made my mouth water. I was just like, ooh. But yeah. So
That was a pretty rolly boat too.
it was very rolly boat.
Out for 4 months. Did you just do the one trip, or did you have additional trips after that?
I did a second trip on the trawler. I made enough money and kind of decided, hey, I kind of like this, having some money and not having to do the school and work all the time. So I did make a second trip on the trawler, which actually was a better trip because first trip, despised Jeff.
Oh, really?
Okay. Despised him.
Since we got the two of you here, why don't you tell us about it?
He was awful.
Well, I just remember. I mean, I can still remember. I'd been on the boat, right?
Yeah.
So I'd done a
two or three seasons.
couple of seasons on the trawler, and
Acted like he owned the boat.
yeah, whatever.
2 or 3 seasons. There's probably only 10 guys that came back.
So there was only it was a big boat, and there was only, I'm gonna say 40 of us on there.
I was 39.
Yeah, so hardly anybody on for nowadays. You know, a boat like that's got 150 people on it now, but or that boat is still up there. It probably has 100 people on it. But anyway, so there wasn't very many of us, but there was a lot of women. There was a pretty good mix, right? There was quite a few women on that boat.
Babe, you're kidding me. There was 5
What?
women.
Well, it seemed like a lot. But I can remember pulling up in my Ford Ranchero, pulling up to the dock and seeing her on the dock loading groceries, and I was like, "Oh, hello, how you doing?" I'm serious. I mean, I saw her. I
you
pulled
in
up
your
and-
rancho, and she goes, "Who
yeah.
the hell's this guy?"
Yeah, I pulled up, and I can remember seeing her, this blondie in a ponytail, and I was just like, "Oh yeah, right on." You know, it's just beautiful. You know, and so it was. You know, I was on. I saw her, and I was like, "That's
This is gonna be a good trip.
that's her, right?"
Yeah.
And she just hated me.
So let's talk about that.
You still had the parachute pants.
Cocky as fuck.
Yeah. Awful.
Yeah.
Yep. I mean, it was like a bad cold. I mean, every time you walked out, you know, we had like the galley and then we had like the serving sides on each side. And every time, there he was. And it was just like, oh my gosh.
He was stalking you.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It was like kind of creepy. Yeah, it was crazy, but
And I just kept at it.
yep.
I think I remember even telling her one time after we'd kind of like hooked up, you know. I told her I think I told her I was gonna marry her or something.
And then I was like,
And she was
I'm
like,
out.
Yeah, she was like, "Who the fuck are you?" You know what I mean? But I was like, for sure, it was love at first sight for me. I mean,
That was it.
Oh, yeah,
It
that
wasn't
was
for
it.
her.
That
Was
was
it
it.
the ranchero or was it the attitude?
I think it was the attitude. I don't know. It was just, you know, back then it was, you know, obviously summer work. And we had some interesting people on board. A lot of young people. We were all very, very young.
And that's back in the days where you still were drinking on the boat. At
Oh,
least
yeah.
some.
Yeah, not so much.
Well, I would say yeah. There was
There was. but
definitely it was controlled. It
was.
was like Friday night would be people would bring out alcohol, and it was kind of be like a party. There would be a night where there was a party night.
Yeah.
It was kind
we
of
had
controlled.
it stored. All the beer was stored in the cooler downstairs.
Yeah,
And
that's right.
and so
Yeah, we actually got
what
beer.
was their captain's Anders would
John
would,
Anders.
would
John
tell,
Plager was on
and
there.
Plager, yeah,
Yeah.
would tell us how many, you know, like you can open, like Father's Day for an example. That was, I think, our first holiday, and they said each person can have 3, but you have to open them. So we stood and opened them, and
Totally forgot about
and you
that.
could pass them out, and
Right.
That's because you didn't have the 3. You had 2 buddies that were giving you theirs.
yeah,
Well, there was lots of contraband, right? You're up there for 3 months because it's different. I mean,
it was
back
different.
then,
Yeah,
mail was super hard to come by.
Yeah.
There was no phones.
yeah,
You had to talk. If you needed to make a phone call, you made a radio call
yeah.
through KMI.
My grandfather got very ill, and we received they called me up to the wheelhouse, and we made a KMI call
Yeah.
to try and get clarification
Totally
from my
different.
mom.
Yeah, it was just
And it was awful, and he sat there and he did all the call signs.
yeah.
Whiskey Echo
Mike.
Kilo Lima.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's good.
Yeah, I know.
memory
I
right
remember.
there.
He must have
Yeah.
done it like I
That
don't
was
know
it,
how
too.
many times.
So we
Whiskey
know where
Echo
we know
Kilo
where the
Lima.
real story's going to come from.
Yeah.
She's got it all on lockdown
Yeah.
here.
So it was different. It was very different. And then also too, when you went into town, we were so excited to go into town, and well, like I said, once I got up there, I wasn't sick, but it definitely was culture shock to leave and
Were you
be out
stopping in
there.
Dutch? Is that where you
Yeah.
guys were going
Yeah,
into?
we would go in.
Offload there a little bit, or did you?
No, I don't even think
We did offload.
we
Because a lot of
We
boats
did
do
offload.
that now. They'll
Oh, yeah.
It took us
That-
almost 30 days to fill, I think.
Yeah, I
28
guess we
days
did
or
offload.
something.
then go offload and then you bring your last load back home.
Right.
Our last load came
Yeah,
home.
Yeah. it was
But I
so-
remember when we got off and we first put our feet down on the ground, it was like I tripped and fell. It was like, because I was just used to it, because that boat rolled.
Yeah, it
I mean,
did
she had a
roll.
very unique roll.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so then we got to go to town and
Is that when you started liking him?
no, actually, it was funny. We, because there was a whole crew of us women, all 5 of us on our boat there was 5 of us.
Alright.
Jeff, there was a whole bunch of them.
He saw one, and
He
his
only
eyes
saw
were like
one.
duplicating
He
everything,
was
right?
focused.
So no,
A lot of people got married off that boat.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
A lot of people ended up together.
Long-term marriages
Yeah.
too. I mean, we've been married for
Thir-
30.
2.
You better get this
Okay.
right.
No,
No,
it's
32.
okay because she screws it up more than I do.
32 years. We just celebrated our 32nd
Yeah.
anniversary.
Yes, but there was 4 or 5 people that got married off that
Yeah.
boat that I know of.
Yeah.
That
So if there
are
was
still
5,
married.
then that'd be 100% of the women.
I know.
Yeah.
Well, there was, they came and went. But they came and
But
went.
we got assigned when we went in, before we went into town, because obviously I hadn't seen town, right? We left from Seattle. We never touched the dock. And so we get all ready to go in, and they would say however many hours you had from the time you got off your shift, how much liberty is what they call it. We had like 8 hours of liberty where we could do
And
whatever
they
we
give you
wanted.
$200 or something.
Yeah, and they would give you money. And then the women, each one of us that chose to go into town, we were assigned 2 people. And all they told us when I was leaving was, whatever you do, and I don't remember who my person was, but it wasn't Jeff, you're assigned, this is your person. And wherever you go, even if you go to the bathroom, you stay with those 2 people. And I was like, this is freaking crazy. What's going to happen to us in town? Well, it was a lot different in 84 than what it is now, right? There wasn't a whole lot of women in town. But anyway, so no, I don't think he was ever assigned. I only remember going into town like 3 times total in my whole time that I fished. But no, he wasn't assigned to me. But yeah, it was. Who the hell?
The elbow room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, we didn't go to the elbow room.
That's where Jeff was at.
That's
Jeff
where I
went
was
to
at.
the
I went to every room.
I at one point later in life I went to the elbow room, but I never went there. You weren't. I don't think women were allowed in the elbow room back then.
They were when I was there.
In early 80s.
Early 90s. But then it closed shortly after. I mean, I'm glad I had the opportunity to go there, though. Cause
Yeah,
too.
I went eventually.
The
later
first time I
in
went in there, I
life,
got
but-
maced.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it wasn't even me. It was. I opened up the door and there was a big old fight going in there. And
As soon as
just as I opened up the door, the bartender went, just sprayed all the way across the whole freaking room. Sprayed mace across the whole room and just blasted me right in my face. I got 2 free drinks out of it. That was pretty good.
That's all that matters.
But it took me to my knees. It was capskin. I mean, it was
And
brutal.
you just walked
Yeah,
in.
and then-
Just walked in.
Yeah, and of course he calls me, right, and says I got maced, and I'm like, what the fuck did you do? And he's like, I didn't. I had nothing to do with it. And I was like,
Yeah, right.
all right,
Yeah.
we're getting a lawsuit somewhere. It's come down the road. This is not going to be good.
Yeah.
But he just kept saying, no, babe, honestly. And I was
crazy.
like, I
Just right
didn't.
in the face. That was my first time in the boba room.
What an introduction. Open the door. I got 2 free drinks out of it, though.
I did.
So you were back home then at that point?
Well,
You said he called you.
Yeah. I
oh,
think
well, that
that's-
was later. But anyway,
that was
so back
later.
to us. So we did the first trip, and then we went for the second trip, and we loaded at Sea Freeze that time.
Yeah.
So this is what kind of endeared me to him.
Oh boy.
Here comes the love
This
story.
was winter, so we were loading, and he was standing out on running the crane on the
I don't
deck.
think this could be a love story.
No, it was cute.
All right.
So, he was up there running the crane, and it was like snowy and yucky and drippy, and he was out there and he had this really thick, heavy knitted wool sweater on. And I was like, do you don't have anything better to wear than that? And of course he has a leather jacket because those went with the parachute pants, right? So he's got his little coat on, or his sweater on, and then when he came in, he was all worried about how do I dry this? And I thought, he said, well, my mom just made it for me. And I thought, oh, what a good son, you know? He's like wearing the sweater it was a nice looking sweater, big zip up one with a big collar. So then, that was different. But here's the final. So of course we were there in the winter, obviously if it was snowing here. And I still have it to this day, 35 years later. On Valentine's Day, he found crayons and a piece of paper, and he made me a Valentine's Day card.
Do you remember doing that, Jeff?
Yeah. I do kind of remember doing that because the crayons were really hard to find, but I just found them.
Yeah. We didn't have a lot of, stuff. It's not you didn't come up with all your stuff. And so, yeah, we had some crafty stuff, I guess, somewhere. I didn't know we had them. But, yeah, you made me a Valentine's Day card.
That's probably the last Valentine's Day card from me.
But you know what? It was important enough she kept it all these years.
It was.
Yeah.
And we wrote a lot of letters.
Yeah.
We wrote a lot of letters because that was it, It was the KMI phone calls, and it was letters back then, and that was it. And so mail call was huge. That's where the mail buoy thing used to come in. Everybody, oh, there's a mail buoy. It was a big joke. Send some rookie up there to stand on the bow in shitty weather and look for the mail buoy. That was the big joke, but it was a real deal. Mail was a huge freaking thing back then.
I remember.
I remember when a boat would pass by us. And everybody, that's all. I would hate to have been a captain then, especially with 39 people all saying, "Are we gonna tie up? Are we gonna go? Do they have our mail?"
Mm-hmm.
That was like the big thing. And then when you'd hear them, they were gonna take the skiff down. It was like, we're getting mail, and it was like a big duffel bag of mail that would come on board.
Yep.
And we would sit in the galley. We had a galley gal that sorted it. But everybody would just sit and put her in.
Look, you got mail. Look.
Yeah, put her in the corner table so that try and keep everybody away from her so she could sort all the mail. And yeah. It was.
She got tennis shoes one time. You get tennis shoes from your mom.
I did. I got tennis shoes. Yeah.
But anyway, she left. I think I told the story about. Didn't I tell the story about the Arctic trawler when we lost power?
Oh yeah, then we lost.
That was
power.
one of my stories. We lost power on the Arctic trawler. She was on there when that happened in Unimac Pass at night.
Wasn't it on a Friday night party night?
I think it was because there was a lot of. I think it was because I remember. Yeah, but rolling like crazy, and we lost all power. The boat was dead in the water. I think John Plager was on there then, if I remember right.
Know.
But anyway, he's a Trident guy. But that's when she left.
Yeah, I left after.
She left.
You were like, I'm done.
Well, it started off. It was like obviously you don't know how bad it is, right? I mean, we had been in a bad storm, and we were making a Thanksgiving dinner. We were having, because for whatever reason, and it was like we never got to order the food.
Sounds like it, because November is always brutal.
We just always got like this huge amount of food, and then it's all shoved into no one cares how they stack it in there, and then they wonder why they didn't get a variety of food. Well, it was like, because it took us an hour to dig out to find one piece of meat that was different than all the ones that were in the front, so we, for whatever reason, we had turkeys like coming out the bazoom. So we decided, well, let's make a turkey, because it was bad weather. And on occasion, the captain would tell us, we're going to be hitting a storm, so don't, to kind of change up how you're going to cook. And so we had these turkeys in, and we had the latches that lifted up on the ovens. And we had 3 ovens and then griddles on top. Well, I don't think that anybody had ever cleaned those griddles. So once we'd get to rolling and it was hot, the oil would seep out, the old bacon grease would seep out on the floor. We had a little, I don't know, incline anyway in the galley that became extremely slippery. When this bacon would the grease would roll out. So we get into the storm, and we've got these turkeys in there, and I'm with this guy that knows nothing more about boats than what I do, right? We're just going to cooking school, and we're just trying to make some money and get home. Anthony, just trying to get home, and we're sitting there, and it's every time Well, we would take a list. I could at times reach out the porthole. We had a porthole in the galley and almost touch the water. That's how far we would list on that boat. But we could hear like, kaboom. And we would sit there and then we'd hear, kaboom. And it was the turkey pans and the turkeys. It was the turkeys in the oven, right? So we'd list really good, and then it would correct, and then they'd whoosh, and they'd hit the back of the oven, and then all of a sudden here'd come another one. Kaboom! Well, enough of this slamming for, and the weather was getting bad, but of course, we were just like praying, we'd been in storms before, it's going to go away. Then we started hearing a little bit different sound, and these turkeys were hitting the latch so hard that it popped the latches. So we had these huge roasting pans with hot turkeys sliding up and down in the galley, right? And we would store the 50-pound boxes of potatoes underneath the prep station. So a couple of those pans of turkeys came out, boom, busted that box. So now you got 100 pounds of potatoes rolling on the floor, and you got
and 3 turkeys running around.
And you got, well, there were 6.
degrees.
There were 6 of them, hot, in the pans, sliding, and then you could hear them like hit the wall on the one side, and they'd hit the bulkhead.
What were you doing?
Well, we were trying to get them. So then it was like
on the bacon grease.
On the bacon grease. So then it was like, if we don't go in, what are we serving for dinner, right? We had no option. So it was like, Anthony was like, you go in and get them. So I'm like, all right. So I get in there, and I'm like trying to go, and it was funny too because
it already sounds funny.
Yeah, it would, and we're laughing we're laughing so hard, and you would stand on the grease, and you would just slide all the way down to the porthole, and then you'd grab onto the porthole, wait for that one shift, and here'd come the turkey. You'd try to grab it with, and you've got hot pads on, so you look like Gumby, right? And you're like sliding up and down in the galley. So eventually now I'm on my knees, right? Just sliding up and down trying to catch them. And the potatoes are going past you, so you can't stand up anyway, and the pans are hot, and we're just like panicked, you got 39 people waiting for dinner, and here's your dinner. It's like freaking hitting one bulkhead, flying up, hitting the other, rolling around with the uncooked potatoes.
If it's me, I just eat some popcorn and watch you guys.
Oh, yeah. It was,
and we were pretty mean to them, too.
It was comical.
All of us were kind of mean to the cooks, because...
Not really all of us.
Okay, well, that's probably part of the reason she hated me. But we were pretty hard on them, because they were, they were greenhorns, right? Neither of them had been on a boat before, and they were rookies, and, it was... So was all going on. But
there was also some of that. Well, they're just in there cooking, and we're working on the deck all day, and we're
all that. It was not good. Yeah. So yeah, we were all making fun of them, and the turkey thing was pretty hilarious. But that was the day, right? Wasn't that the day?
I think it was. Yeah.
When that happened.
So our whole fear of, it was like, how are you going to disguise these turkeys? Because they were just like mutilated by the time. So Anthony was like, just cut them all up and no one will ever know that they were on the ground. And I'm like, how could you not? I mean, they were. Yeah. So we served dinner. So we cut them up and we put them out in the, we had a buffet line. And so we put them all out there, and the weather never improved. And it just kept getting worse, and it kept getting worse, and kept getting worse.
Just picturing it, though, it's like it's like Bonnie. Just if you picture the
totally, yeah, hilarious.
It was a great galley.
It was a big galley.
It was a big galley.
So that was it for you, though. Is that when you decided?
No,
that all happened, and the boat broke down, and I stayed.
Well,
on
my
the
grandfather
boat.
was very ill.
Yeah, I stayed on the boat, and she left. Yeah. I can still remember that too. I can remember because we were hard together then, right? I mean, we were a couple then, and I can still remember her taking off on the skiff, and that feeling of God,
there she goes.
Yeah, this sucks. I can just watch it, And
Did you have her number to get a hold of her when you got back?
Oh yeah, no, we were together then. I mean, we were definitely a couple then.
It was the Valentine's Day card.
Yeah. It was that.
I was a sucker for it.
Oh, you're right.
But I can remember her.
We're talking. This is November now.
Right. But I can remember her pulling away and just going, the feeling of just, oh my God, my heart's going away, And but it was only a couple weeks, and then I went home and met her mom, and that whole, and so yeah, there was that. But then
the way you said that, there's a story behind that too.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, there's a story behind.
Did your mom not want you marrying a fisherman?
No.
No.
She finally, after about 25 years, she kind of realized that. No, I mean, she always loved Jeff. Yeah. She loved him, a lot, but
But in the beginning,
it was. Our entire life together has been, when is he going to quit fishing? On both sides of our family.
For,
Especially when we have
for you
kids.
too.
No. No.
Uh-uh.
No.
just our in-laws,
Yeah.
both sides, always. Every
Family.
time I get home,
Are you done? Is that your
Yeah.
last?
Yeah.
Is
When are
this-
you gonna quit? When are you gonna stop? When are
Yeah.
you gonna...
So Susan, how do you deal with it? I mean, obviously you guys got married, you started
Yeah,
having kids, and
we got married.
and Jeff was still running to Alaska. And at that time, you were probably running to Alaska 10 months out of the year.
8 anyway, 8 or 9, a lot. Yeah.
How did you
working a
handle
lot.
that, Susan? I mean, once you get on a boat, you can actually lose track of not only days, but you can literally
yeah.
lose track of what month it is because
Yeah.
everything's going
Right.
so much. But how did you deal with it at home?
Well, I was forced to stay home. I made one other trip on a boat, and I was injured. So we moved companies after the trawler incident, and so I was forced to stay home for medical until I got cleared, and so I didn't have a choice. So he left, made another trip without me, and then I just kind of, it wasn't for me. So I had made that decision. So I made 3 seasons, so I only worked 9 months in Alaska total over a year and a half.
Yeah, but at sea, 9 months
Yeah.
at sea.
Yeah.
That's no joke. That's not like being in catch can nowadays and getting off your shift and going to watch a movie.
Yeah,
town.
and totally different.
You
Yeah,
know,
totally
um,
different. Totally different times. I mean, no communication, no internet, no, you had mail, and that was
Did you?
pretty much it.
Were a lot of the guys going back to when you were on the boats? Was a lot of the guys like teasing you or hitting on you besides Jeff? Because we had Laura Hartman. She was an observer. She came on the show, and hers, she was the only woman on the boat.
Oh.
So she got it from every direction. She even got bit on the ass one time when she was cooking. She was going to go make some cookies. Did any
She got bit on that.
Yeah.
Oh
She
my
was standing
God.
on top of a bucket reaching to get some cookie dough stuff or whatever to make cookies, and the guy came into the bit her on the ass. But this is years ago. Hers was in the early 90s.
Yeah.
Did you have any other problems with any other guys besides the stalker you had?
Besides for my stalker. I think that the general attitude was kind of like the guys that were on there, or the return guys, pretty much sized up how many women were coming on their trip and which ones, I think that was probably pretty common.
Are you saying they all picked their woman before?
I think that everybody, like, in their mind, like, and I think the guys were watching, well, you've been talking to that girl a lot, and so she's off, and, I think that was pretty
So
common.
there wasn't a lot of harassment, I guess would be the word.
I wouldn't say so. I think the worst harassing situation that I was ever in was, again, I mentioned we had moved to another company, and I had been injured, and they had made the decision finally that I was going to go into the doctor for an x-ray. And so what that entailed was Jeff and we were together. So he and the mate, I believe, put me in the skiff and took me into town. But the clinic was closed, so I had to wait till the next day. So I don't even know what hotel I stayed in. It must have been Unicy's.
Yeah, or Carl's.
Oh, I think I was at Carl's.
Yeah.
They said, here's your room. The captain, or the mate was there, and Jeff was there. Gave me the keys. Jeff came upstairs with me, and the mate said, just do not open the door. And when I checked in at the counter, they said, here's the number for your cab. They'll pick you up in the morning. Call them when you're ready. But don't open your door. And I was like, what the heck? He wasn't gone more than a half an hour. And I listened to people pound on my door. All the crab boats were in. And so they had all seen me come in, right? Saw me come in, check into the room, Jeff and the mate leave.
Don't open the door.
Yeah.
Don't open the door.
Serious.
And I didn't know, right?
Yeah, serious.
And I
Serious
started to
freaking
get
nuts
like
back then.
super nervous because it wasn't just like knocking on the door. I mean, it was like jumping and pounding, and so I started moving furniture. I was getting nervous, because I don't know what's going on. It must have been Carl's because I could hear the music downstairs,
Carl's.
and that was the worst night of my life. I don't think I slept at all.
Moving furniture in front of it.
Well, I was just nervous that I didn't know at what point when they were going to get in.
And back there when there wasn't a cell phone, she could call you.
There wasn't a cell
Oh,
phone.
exactly. No, it was
No.
pretty crazy.
And that
Pretty
was
crazy.
probably That was the only scary. I don't know. Maybe I wasn't that approachable. I never really got harassed on the boats.
Yeah.
But
Well, it sounds like normally I ask what was the scariest time. That's scary, but it sounds like to me the scariest time was being at sea and cooking and having those turkeys everywhere. But it sounds.
oh no, it was
but
funnier,
wasn't
and I'll get
scary,
out.
I guess.
Yeah,
it was
no,
funny,
it wasn't really. We didn't really. I think the scariest time for me was our friend Terry had the net roll over his leg. I don't even know what happened. He got stuck in the trawl.
We're hauling back.
Yeah, hauling back, and he slipped or something. I don't know. And we took a bad roll, and so the whole bag shifted and pinned his leg in between the trawl deck.
Against the
Against
fence?
the trawl fence, yeah.
Yeah.
Slipped down in there.
And
Well,
these
as the bag was coming up.
And these bags are hundreds of thousands.
Yeah.
Well, this was cod, but whatever. I mean, this was cod back then, so maybe 50 tons or whatever. You
Oh,
know.
oh yeah, only 100.
Right, yeah.
And they
nothing
brought
like we got now.
and
but-
they brought him in, and we had an old medical office that had just had a bunch of furniture in there, and they took him in there and laid him on the ground, and I sat on his chest, and Jeff held his hands while they popped his leg back in, and that was by far. I think it was scary because you're so far away.
It was shitty
Yeah,
then.
it was shitty
It was
then.
really shitty. And we were sleeping.
Yeah, and they woke
I could
us up.
hear him. I could hear him
Yeah.
screaming on deck.
Yeah,
He was yelling my name so loud. I could
and so
hear it.
then they
Yeah.
they let us go in
It was
there and sit
brutal.
with him.
Twisted
while
it
they
all
did
around.
it.
It was brutal.
It was just mangled.
Yeah. And then it was about an 18-hour run in. We were up the Pribs. And we had
Yeah.
to go all the way in it. Because
No-
it was so shitty. He
No
couldn't call
call
a
on the Coast
helicopter.
Guard. Yeah.
No.
It was brutal storm. And so it was all the way in. And
Back then, did they do a lot of medevacs back then? Or
I think they did. I think they still did them, but just it wasn't happening with
it
that
was just-
weather.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah, that was horrific.
scary. I mean, there were scary.
He never fished
times,
again.
but
Well, no,
yeah.
he did. He went to
He
the
did.
factory for a while.
Yeah.
But that was.
But I think it's just that unknown of being so far away with no communication.
Yeah.
Everything is dependent on who's running the boat. And of course, the positions that we were in that time, it's not like you had a lot of communication with the wheelhouse, or
Right.
back in that time, there was a pretty strong divide between the wheelhouse.
Yeah, you were in the
Yeah.
the galley, so
Yeah.
you weren't talking to. You were on deck, and all you got was orders.
Right. And
Yeah.
I was a combi. Besides that, so I wasn't one of the Norwegians, so I wasn't.
Yeah, you went up
I
and worked
wasn't
on the
in the
deck when they
know.
let you, and then you had to
Right.
go back
that
down.
big storm where we lost power and everything. Most people on the boat had no idea. Now, I mean, knowing what I know now, dude, it was bad. It was bad. And back, we were laughing and there was a lot of alcohol going on too, right? So I mean, it was party night.
Right.
So it was kind of but people, nobody
just didn't really
knew how
know
freaking
until
bad it was.
it got
I mean, that
bad,
boat could
yeah.
have rolled over so easily.
Immediately, yeah.
Yeah, and then we had another boat come and tie up to us to get us in. That's how we got in. Slammed up
Wow.
against us, knocked a guy out of his bunk, and it was pretty horrific. And we didn't really know. It was just kind of a joke.
Taking the knowledge you have now, as you
Yeah.
said, and looking back at
Yeah.
that point, you're like, that was just,
God.
yeah.
We would have had people in survival suits. We would have had.
You'd already been calling the Coast Guard.
Yeah, and
you'd
I
been-
have no idea what. I'm
Yeah.
sure the Coast Guard had
Had
to
to
have
have been.
involved.
had to be
But
notified.
we didn't know.
Yeah.
We didn't have any idea of that. And we were lower down on the totem pole anyway, but still, we were in the galley laughing, playing freaking cards, and
Yeah. I mean, that boat
Man.
rolled.
what
It rolled.
we had a portal
Getting in
open.
and out
There
of
was a
the-
portal open
Yeah.
on the second deck, and we took a wave, and it went through that portal and shot all the way across the room. So we went
you
left
were-
that portal. I mean, rolling
you
like
were in
a
the danger zone.
mother.
Dangerous.
But we had turkey.
But we had turkey.
We had turkey dinner.
Nobody knew it was on the ground.
Nope.
So I want to go. We're getting
Okay,
long
so-
in time,
yeah,
but
okay.
something I really want to know.
So
and
how do you do it when he's not
Our,
there?
no, yep, our listeners
Okay,
are going to
so
want
I think again, there's a plus and a minus to it. I was there, so I know what it's about. I know the struggles that a fisherman has, and I know what it was like to leave, my family here and my house and all of those things, and so there's always that empathy, when you would leave. And before we had kids, I just remember being devastated when he would leave. I mean, I would start the crying 3 days before he was ready to go, and I just didn't want him to leave. And I had a good job, so I was busy. You know, I had a pretty good work schedule. But when we had kids, then it changed. You know, then it goes from that your own personal heartbreak to watching your children and how they feel when he would leave. And you know, he would pack his bags, and he still to this day says, "It'll be quick, babe. It'll be quick." That's the standard, you know. And I hear my son say it now too. "It'll be quick, you know. This is the quick trip."
He doesn't say. He says. It
He says it in the exact same way, you know. And the first time I ever saw him cry was after we had Sarah. And it was the night before he was ready to go, and I had just put her down, and I was like, "Where's Jeff?" And I walked in, and he was like sitting with his hands, you know, in his head in the middle of the garage, just crying. And so it was like the first time I think that he really went, wow. So having children, young children, changed, you know, the perception of, you know, being sad yourself is one thing, but, you know, trying to explain that to, you know, a
3-year-old
kid.
or
Yeah. And I remember the first time when he came home, and Sarah was probably 6 months and had started to crawl, and he came in and he was so excited to see her, and she looked at him and she grabbed hold of me, and then we sat in the living room, and I said, "Just sit on one side," and she sat with me, and he kept, you know, trying to get her to come over, and she would not. Every time he'd come close to her, she would scream.
Heartbreaking for you, huh?
Scream and oh yeah, he must have. He left the room.
Terrible.
I mean, this went on for.
That
like
was my little angel, man. Just
for like an hour it took until she like warmed up. You know, like. So I mean, that was hard. You know, it was really hard to do, and it's, you know, the heartbreak for the kids. You know, as they got older, and then, you know, we had Nick, and I swore I wouldn't have any more children if he was still working, and then we had Nick, and. You know,
Thank God, boy and a girl. This is great. But she's a super dedicated, hardworking, individualistic, self-starting. She has all those qualities that you have to have.
Yeah.
Right? You have to have those to be able to survive what it is for me to leave for that long. She had all that stuff, and if you don't have that, there's no way you could do it.
Yeah.
And now your son's doing the same thing.
I know. And I think, you know, the other thing too is like it's Jeff's career, it's his job. But you have to acknowledge that a part of it is your wife's and your children's. And he's always been conscious of
the sacrifice
that we're making, as well as him. And, you know, like I said, since I've been there, I don't know what's the worst part, being home or being the one that's gone.
Right.
You know, it's a sacrifice for both. And, you know, after we had the kids, I had seen it way too many times with other couples that we knew that
couldn't do it.
You know, either their marriage ended or the guy quit fishing, and, you know, he loves it. Nick loves it. I mean,
I know Jeff loves it.
There's a love, you know.
Yeah.
And I said to him, I said, look, we just have to make a pact that never will we ever put the other person in that situation.
Well, you gotta change.
If you ever call and say, I can't do it, that's it.
Yeah.
Right? You know, whether he was going to call and say, babe, I got to come home.
Yeah.
And we've done it. He's done it once. He came home after 9/11 because the kids were freaked out. So he flew home on the 12th, and Nick's birthday was the 14th. And so he came home once. I've never called and said, you got to come.
So
never.
You owe her one.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
She's got one in the bank, buddy.
Oh, yeah, for sure. She's got a bunch in the bank.
Yeah.
For sure. I mean, there's been a bunch of times when.
But you have to be committed.
She's never. Yeah, she's totally committed, because obviously there's been, you know, life is life, right? There's all kinds of shit in life, and she's never said. She's been close, but she's never called me and said,
"You got to come home.
You got to come home. That's you got to come home."
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah.
Well, it's great to see. I mean, with as many friends as I have in the industry, not a lot of them have what you guys have. It's tough.
It is.
And we're pushing time, but I want to give Jeff a bonus moment here because you were on the after your episode. I'm sure, as everyone does, the microphone turns off and they go, "Oh, I should have told them about, or I should have brought up," and that happened to you. I'm sure. This is your moment.
On the first when I first started talking.
What was it? You said something
I know you
about
walked out of here and said, "Oh,
Oh God, now you put me on the spot.
everybody does."
Yeah. What is it? What was it? There was some freaking story, and it was an Arctic trawler story if I remember right. But when I first got on the Arctic trawler, all right here. So when I first got on that boat, I flew up, and the weather was so crappy that I got on another boat that was with the same company, and I was on that boat for a week before I could get over to the Arctic trawler. We were both at sea, and it was just horrid weather, horrid storms. So I worked on this other boat, which was bizarre anyway, processing cod. And then I got the call that I was going to go over to the Arctic trawler. First time. And hopefully this guy's listening to this thing or something. But he was the captain on. He was the captain after this, but at this point he was, I think, the deck boss, right? So the original deck boss on the Arctic trawler was the guy who runs American Seafoods, right? Can't think of his name, but
Currently runs American Seafoods.
he did. He started American Seafoods.
Okay.
And why I can't remember his name, I can't. But anyway, so there's some serious history in the Arctic trawler. But so Pete Richardson was the deck boss, right? And it was at night, which is crazy anyway when I think about how all this shit happened then. And so it was at night, and we got close to these two boats. Still crappy weather. Probably not as bad as what I thought it was then, but they put me in a survival suit and and he came in a skiff at night in a Zodiac, came over to our boat, and I got in the skiff pretty okay because it was a smaller boat, and then I had to get in the Arctic trawler. So
And you're in a Gumby suit.
in a Gumby suit, pull up kind of next to the Arctic trawler, and he's like, the whole time he's coaching me, he's like, "All right, you're gonna have to jump.
You're gonna have to
You're gonna have to jump." Yeah, serious. And it's crappy out. I mean, it's crappy, right? The boat was 300 feet, and we're taking big swells in this freaking skiff at night. And I think about it now, I'm just like, there's no way this shit can't happen. But dark as hell, in the Gumby suit, first time. I'd done some other processing and stuff, but I'd never really been at sea at this point, right? And he's like, "You're gonna have to jump." So we time it to where the skiff comes up on a wave, and I freaking jumped onto that boat. Just boom, land, do a barrel roll on deck of the boat.
Your Gumby suit.
Goodbye.
There you are. Big Norwegian comes up and says, "Take that shit off. Go downstairs and put your anchor on." That's how I started on the Arctic trawler. Unbelievable. How
Wow.
it was,
None of which would happen today.
none of which would no way would that happen nowadays. But yeah, so that's how I got introduced to that was my first time on the Arctic trawler.
I
Was
didn't know that.
Yeah, just so hey, Pete Richardson, if you've ever heard, I'd love to talk to that guy again because that was just
Hear that, Pete?
his version of it just
Pete, just give us a call.
exactly. Yeah. So yeah, that's it. That's
Yeah.
it. That's what I was. That's
All
what I
right.
was thinking.
So thanks, guys, for taking the time
Yeah.
to come
Absolutely.
and share your story. Susan, I think that turkey story is one of the most entertaining that we've
you
had.
can just
on
vision
here.
that.
I just picture
People
it.
can
Then the
just look
potatoes rolling everywhere, and there's bacon grease. And
Yeah.
it's certainly
We had
entertaining.
some good times on that boat. We certainly did. It was a fun boat.
It was a
but-
fun boat. It was the Love Boat. Telling you,
5 out of
we
5.
called it the Love Boat. Yep.
The love boat.
Yep.
Well, 33 years of marriage says something.
There you go.
32. We haven't made it to 33.
it's
Don't
coming
jinx
up,
us.
right?
Don't
wait,
jinx us.
Whoa.
Oh wait, did that just happen?
Whoa.
32 just happened, right?
In October, yeah.
October.
October.
Yep. Oh, hunting season.
Yeah.
She kind of planned it to where
I
opening
bet-
day of hunting season.
You know
was-
what?
That's when we were going to get married.
I bet you that your marriage was planned around hunting season.
No, we didn't. Jeff didn't hunt then. My dad is going to be 83, and every year on our anniversary, he still brings up, it's the only year I never went for that I missed for opening
Yep.
day of pheasant.
Yep.
Was the year you got married.
Yep.
He still is sore about it. 32 years later, he still brings it up.
The only your
Jeff
dad.
Yeah.
Jeff didn't hunt back then.
I didn't hunt, but that was a big day for her.
I've never seen a picture of Jeff except for at your daughter's
I
wedding
know.
that he
I know.
wasn't wearing camo.
I know. And that all started from her dad.
That was my family.
Her
We're
dad
the
was
hunters.
the bird hunter, and that's all that whole thing. And now it encompasses everything we do.
Always in camo, and you're always
I know.
killing something.
So now
Yep.
we've
Killing
got
fish,
Yep.
killing.
Yep, I know it, right? It's always,
this is our schedule at home. Getting ready to go fishing, acclimating coming home from fishing, and hunting. That's how our
Well,
life.
I seen a picture not even a month ago of you with a bunch of dead stuff around you.
Oh, I know. I had a really good hunt.
she's all in.
No,
all in.
I enjoy it.
Oh, yeah.
We spend more time living without the conveniences of running water and electricity than we were home maybe 20 days out of the 4 months he was home. So.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, you guys, I can't thank you enough for coming and sharing your story jointly.
Thanks for having
that was
us.
kind of a cool experiment to
Yeah.
try it. I think it's going to work out just real good.
Right on.
So, again, guys, this has been Mark Kaler with Galley Stories. Write into us at galleystories@gmail.com. And Susan and Jeff Crain have been with us. And thank you, guys.
Thanks,
Thank
Mark.
you.